Hello and welcome to my channel. You're about to watch the first episode in a 7-part transformational video series, which uncovers the hidden patterns that quietly sabotage high-achieving founders, creatives, and professionals. You will discover the unconscious loops that trap you in cycles of self-doubt, overthinking, or burnout, which, by the way, can happen to us all, no matter how successful one may seem on the outside. Because you might be doing all the right things, yet still feel like you're running on empty, hitting invisible walls, or getting stuck in procrastination. So, this series is here to help you identify those patterns so you can begin to transform them, which will allow you to lead, create, and live from a place of alignment and ease. I'm Isa Beck. I'm the self-sabotage specialist, and I help founders and professionals break free from procrastination, self-doubt, and anxiety so they can lead with that clarity, confidence, and purpose. And I'm really glad that you're here because that tells me that you care about your inner world and you want to better understand those unconscious patterns that may be holding you back. Now, each episode in the series shines a light on a different sabotaging patterns, helping you bring that conscious awareness to what's been quietly interfering with your personal and business growth. And today we are uncovering the first hidden way that we self-sabotage. And just so you know, you don't need to watch these episodes in any particular order. Just follow what feels best for you, and you will find links to all the episodes in the description below. So feel free to explore it at your own pace. So let's dive into today's topic. The hidden way we self-sabotage, number one. Let's talk about a form of self-sabotage that often goes unnoticed because on the surface it looks like a good thing. And I'm talking about overgiving. It shows up as kindness, as dedication, sometimes even mistaken as a leadership trait. But underneath, it's exhausting, it's overwhelming, and while it may seem altruistic, it increases stress levels and most often leads to exhaustion, burnout, and generally feeling unappreciated. So, what exactly is overgiving? Overgiving is when you consistently prioritize other people's needs over your own, often at the expense of your time, your energy, and your well-being. It is characterized by that strong desire to go beyond and above for others, and it's a way of finding purpose in helping and giving. So there is that underlying drive to feel useful, to feel needed. Now, it is also often marked by that inability to say no, even when taking on more creates stress or overwhelm for you. So you may find yourself agreeing to take on a task, do a favor, or be there for somebody, even though you yourself are overwhelmed or your schedule is fully booked. Because overgivers really hate letting people down. So as a result, you end up being the one people rely on. You're always available, always helping and offering that emotional support at all hours, yet rarely getting the same back in return. Now, here's where it gets tricky because when you're so focused on others, it lets you escape facing your own pain, desires, and even goals. And giving becomes a form of emotional avoidance. Because when you help others, it gives you that sense of purpose and value, especially when they start to depend on you. And as this pattern continues, little by little, your own needs get pushed down to the bottom of the list. And then you wonder why you're exhausted. And it's almost as if your needs are just not important. And by the way, do you even know what they are? Now, you might have even taken on the role of being the fixer, solving everybody's problems, rescuing team members, or taking on their work. Now, just keep in mind that over time, giving and being there for everyone except for yourself even becomes your identity, rooted in that belief that your worth depends on how much you do for others, which fuels chronic overfunctioning. And yes, this is a form of people pleasing and codependency. It's almost like seeking others' approval and validation just to feel okay. And instead of doing what you truly want, you may actually end up doing what others expect of you. And this keeps you stuck in roles that no longer fit you, whether it's a job, a business, a friendship, simply because you want to do what's expected of you. You don't want to let them down. So you may actually end up dismissing your own dreams or passions. Now, overgivers are also more prone to addiction, weight struggles, or overspending. So let's look at how else overgiving shows up in daily life and in business. So there is often a strong sense of responsibility for how others feel, whether for a team, employee, or people in close circles. Now, this can create that heavy feeling, this burden. You may feel as if everything is resting on your shoulders. And yeah, saying no may trigger feeling guilty. So there's a lot of guilt here on this level. And this leads to avoidance of setting boundaries out of that fear of being seen as a bad person, of pushing people away and being alone. And you end up silencing your own voice in order to avoid that rejection or even to avoid conflict. So limits are not set with clients, family members, friends. And being constantly available starts to make it feel like others are controlling your schedule. So, what else is really common here is undervaluing your work. So, there can be a tendency to undercharge, to overdeliver, offering extra time, additional support. And also, there is this persistent feeling of never having done enough, no matter how much effort you put into things. There is a tendency to overthink. The mind just races all the time. You may find yourself occupied with multiple tasks and concerns while still your personal well-being is neglected. So as you can see, this pattern results in self-abandonment. Now, there are three most common beliefs that lie at the root of overgiving patterns, and they are: I must please others to be loved and accepted. I'm not lovable or enough for who I really am. And it's selfish to put myself first. So if any of these resonate, I want you to know you're not alone. And even just recognizing these beliefs could be the first step towards change for you. Because when these beliefs run in the background, what happens is we begin to reject parts of ourselves, and we just continuously seek that love, that approval outside of us. Now, at the core of this pattern is a subconscious strategy whereby overgiving and that self-abandonment become ways to avoid the pain of rejection and abandonment. And it says, if I'm always needed, they won't leave. If I give enough, I will be safe. So there can also be this worry that someone might dislike us, judge us, or say something negative about us. And overgivers can have this profound discomfort when they're not constantly trying to prove their value by being there for everybody. And as with everything, this pattern stems from early survival responses when love, validation, or acceptance felt conditional. Because as children, we learned that affection came when we were helpful, pleasing, or obedient, so we adapted. We stepped into roles, or you could have stepped into that role of being the helper, the fixer, the caretaker, because that's where that safety and a sense of belonging were found. Now, of course, back then, these behaviors were protective, but you can imagine that over time, they are sabotaging us, especially as adults. They're holding us back. And being aware of the roots, your own personal roots of these patterns, creates a choice, gives you a choice that you can do something about it. So, what is the real cost of overgiving? Because it doesn't just deplete and overwhelm you, it impacts every part of your life. When energy runs low, there is little left to fully show up for your family, your children, your partner, even for yourself. And it's important to understand that when you give without replenishing, when you're not resting, when you're not getting that help or that support, it's a form of self neglect. And the longer this pattern continues, the more actually your confidence, clarity, and creativity start to erode. What is more, the overgiver begins to feel a quiet resentment, feels unappreciated because doing so much for others and not getting anything back, not even a thank you sometimes, can make that person feel depleted. But instead of expressing these feelings, they hold them in. And that resentment simmers beneath the surface. Of course, burnout becomes a risk here as well, but instead of slowing down, the overgiver continues showing up with a smile, holding it all together. Because deep down, they believe that they have to be strong, just to show off that they're strong for everybody. So at this point, you may be wondering, so Isa, are you saying that I'm not supposed to be kind and helpful to everybody? Is this what you're saying? Well, no, of course, being a kind and helpful human is the way forward in life, right? But the truth is, if being kind comes at a cost of your well-being and health, it's really worth asking yourself if this is truly the way for you, if it's sustainable. Because without taking care of yourself first, everything else eventually starts to collapse. Now, I want to tell you the truth about overgiving. Overgiving isn't true selflessness. It's not purely driven by generosity, it fulfills a deeper purpose to meet certain emotional needs. And also, it's driven by fear, the fear of not being enough, unless constantly doing for others, unless being useful. But you need to understand the act of sacrificing oneself never fills one's cup. It doesn't bring wholeness, it doesn't create a sense of being enough. And it's a sign of disconnection with yourself. And there is this belief that you don't deserve kindness, support, or love. And it often carries these messages as, if I ask for help, I'm a burden. If I stop giving, I'm going to be pushed away, and my needs don't matter. So when you are disconnected from your needs, giving comes from a place of emptiness, and that's why it depletes you so much. And yes, this is a self-worth issue. Giving becomes this attempt to feel accepted and worthy and morally good. And also, by the way, in the effort to please, overgivers lose the very trust and that respect they deeply desire, because instead of inspiring admiration, this pattern can unintentionally teach others to expect constant self-sacrifice and to take your support for granted. It's also really important to understand the difference between serving and overgiving. Serving comes from alignment. So you are giving in a way that supports both yourself and the other person. So it's mutual, it's healthy and sustainable. It's genuine and it really benefits everybody involved, okay? Whereas overgiving, on the other hand, can look like service on the outside, but as you are now aware, it's a form of self-sacrifice, and it also comes from wanting to control how others see you or to avoid negative judgment. That is why it is so important to be honest with yourself about whether your giving comes from a place of generosity or depletion. And just to let you know, generous giving feels light and joyful, whereas overgiving can feel very heavy because it's a one-way flow of energy. And this is that hidden form of self-sabotage. And the truth is, you cannot lead well, you cannot love fully, you cannot build anything sustainable when you're constantly running on empty, when you're depleted. And this kills that drive and passion as well, because you are just exhausted and tired. So check in with yourself. Where am I giving more than I have to? Where do I feel guilty for setting boundaries or saying no? What am I afraid would happen if I stop rescuing and fixing? And what part of me still believes that I have to earn love and acceptance? And when was the last time I asked myself what I need? So you can pause the video and see if you can answer these questions. And also, something that I want to point out is that this is not about stopping your desire to serve. It's rather about seeing that true service doesn't require self-abandonment. Because strong leadership does not come from self-sacrifice or depletion. It comes from showing up as a whole, well-resourced version of yourself. And this is what heart-led leadership is about, leading from emotional clarity, presence, and resilience, none of which are sustainable without self-care. So it starts with leading yourself first. And remember, you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to say no. And you are allowed to have needs, and you are still a good person when you do. And this is all what we work through, what I actually worked through with James, who was a past client of mine, who was a high-performing leader in a fast-growing green tech business. And on the surface, he seemed to have it all together. But behind the scenes, he was exhausted. He had become the go-to guy for everything, helping everyone around him. And he was doing everything, and he was struggling to delegate. He was literally at the point of burnout, and then he was even undercharging for his work, and he really felt guilty taking time off. So, through our work together, he uncovered the childhood patterns that made him believe that he's only lovable or valuable when he takes on a lot of responsibilities for others. So his helper identity had formed when his father left, and he became the emotional anchor for his family. But once we rewired those subconscious narratives and released the emotional burden, James stopped leading from sacrifice and began leading from self-trust. He reclaimed boundaries, he raised his rates, and he finally allowed himself to rest without feeling guilty. And what happened? His team began to thrive without him carrying it all because he actually started to trust them and they felt more powerful and capable. He also became calmer, clearer, and even more confident. He no longer needed to be the fixer for everyone. He let go of that guilt. And what was really amazing was that James finally made space for himself and he reconnected with his creativity. And what happened was he launched a new program that had been on the back burner for so many years. But James's story is just one example because overgiving is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. One of the 7 hidden patterns that quietly deplete your energy, sabotage your success, and keep so many people stuck in these cycles of burnout, self-doubt, and overthinking. So make sure to tune in to watch the other parts. So in the series where I continue to uncover those hidden ways that we self-sabotage. And if this form of self-sabotage, which is overgiving, feels like a familiar story to you, or if you often find yourself carrying that weight of being the strong one, it might be time for a shift. So if you're ready and you're ready to start leading from wholeness, if this message resonates with you, and you are ready to break that cycle, reclaim your worth, and start leading from your heart, emotional clarity, and inner power, you're welcome to book a clarity session with me. You can find the details in the description. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. And please remember to subscribe to my channel for more insights, more tools on that can help you on your journey, on your self-improvement, self-development, and take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself, and I will see you in the next video.